presenter. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Miss Pong Stella. So she's going to talk about her development of adaptive experiential learning via interactive contemporary education with virtual reality. So I'm just going to give you an introduction to Stella. So she's an electrical and electronic engineering undergraduate with a minor in education studies at NTU and NIE respectively. Her primary academic interests include artificial intelligence, cloud solutions, curriculum design, data analytics, edutech, game development, ICT-based learning, machine learning, UI and UX, and extended reality. So during her time as a software intern at MediaCorp, where she worked at the Connected Media Product Management Division, she led a UI and UX enhancement project for Toggle, Singapore's most popular OTT with more than 1.4 million viewers. Currently, she's developing a virtual reality solution, the Adaptive Experiential Learning via Contemporary Education, which is the AELVICE, for students with dyslexia to improve on their verbal expressions and literacy. She was also granted the A-Star Award as a recognition for her endeavors and performance in science and technology. So let's welcome Miss Stella.
All right, thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you all of you for signing up for this breakout session. Okay, so a brief introduction about myself. I'm Stella Pong, and with me over there at the back are my project teammate Jia and my supervisor Dr. Wesley Tan. Right, let's give them a round of applause. They have done so much for this project. All right, so basically we are a team of 2 students from NTU, and we are supervised by Dr. Wesley Tan. And what we do is we actually create this presentation simulation via virtual reality for dyslexic students so that they can practice and simulate their presentation in a virtual setting. So that's basically the background of it. Since we are in an edutech conference, we have to go back to the basic, right? So what exactly is technology? Anyone knows? Or when I say technology, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Sorry, I heard something?
Computers.
All right, computers. Any answers? Anything else?
Innovation.
Sorry, who said what?
Innovation.
Innovation. Is that what you said? All right. So we think of computers, we think of innovation, we think of new pieces of technology like PC, mobile phones, maybe our cars, like transport vehicles. All those are classified under technology. And actually, what does technology do for us? So can we all agree that to actually be classified as a technology, it has to be something that benefits mankind and makes our lives better? Yes? Right. Okay, it's kind of a Asian thing to not respond. Okay, I guess it's a retribution for being inactive in class as a student, but oh well, that's fine. All right. Okay, let's think of let's go back to older pieces of innovation and invention. Right here we see a speed bump, right? And okay, I'm sure most of you drive cars or own a driving license. A show of hands? Who drive cars and own? All right, that's more than half of the audience. Okay, so when you first see a speed bump, what do you actually do? You slow down, right? And why do you slow down?
You don't damage your undercarriage.
Yes, so that you don't damage your car. And okay, let's put that on hold. We take a look at another piece of technology. This is a door dampening mechanism, also known as a door hinge. And what does this door hinge do for us? It slows down the door and it closes for us automatically, right? So what we have right here, we have a big door. If I push it open, and it's gonna slam a little bit, and if I leave it there, it's going to close on its own. I can just leave it to close on its own. So with these 2 examples in mind, let's take a look at what technology actually does for us. So in this slide, Chee and Leonard has said that human flourishing must remain the core objective of all technological progress. So do you think these 2 examples, the speed bumps and the door hinge, fulfills these criteria? A show of hands, those of you who think that it does. Okay, quite a handful. So what about the rest? Do you think that it doesn't? Or do you think maybe it what do you think?
Not so directly, I mean, for humans to flourish, I would think more of medical tech, you know, yeah, maybe something like that.
Right. So we think of medical tech maybe for human flourishing, and I guess most of us think that the speed bump and the door hinge fulfills the criteria of human flourishing being the core objective of all technological progress. But okay, I mean, don't get me wrong. I really love these inventions and they have made our lives so much better. But I'm going to tell you why it really doesn't fulfill this. So let's take a look at the speed bump again. We slow down so that we don't damage our car. And when we see one, it's for ourselves, right? But actually, what is the purpose of the speed bump? It's not only to slow down the car. It's also to keep pedestrians safe. The purpose of slowing down your car is so that you don't run into people and when you're driving at high speed. And in fact, when you drive at high speed over the speed bump, you're going to damage your car real bad. So likewise, alright. Okay, likewise for this door hinge over here, this door hinge, we can be inconsiderate all we want. We can slam the door, leave it open, but ultimately that door is still going to close on its own. Do you agree? And having this door hinge and speed bump, it doesn't change our inconsiderate behavior. It doesn't really examine the humanistic aspect of flourishing. It only solves the root problem. I mean, it doesn't solve the root problem. It only solves the problem on the surface. It doesn't go deeper and think about, okay, these drivers are inconsiderate because they are running over pedestrians, so I put a speed bump, it slows them, like, basically they don't want to slow down because it damages their car. And door hinge can also be inconsiderate, but it doesn't solve that problem. So, as we develop ELVICE, we have that in mind. We use this principle, and many of us think that technology is so convenient, right? It's so automated nowadays, AI, machine learning, extended reality, virtual reality. It can virtually even replace our teachers or educators. And that's what all the tech reports are saying. Like, these technologies can potentially replace our roles in the near future, or maybe, like, not say near future, in fact, it has already been happening in some places. But that's not the case for ELVICE. When we develop ELVICE, we bear in mind that the educator's role are as important and should be more important than ever before. So what we have here is the educator should facilitate the students' use of the technology instead of having the technology replace their roles. And we have worked with DAS on this, Sufrina at the back, and we have also spoken with some partners over the course of these 2 years while working on the project. And the aim of ELVICE is to help dyslexic students speak confidently. So all these dots here, I'm sure you know what they are for because it breaks down the word for them, syllables by syllables. And what are the current ELVICE features? We have environment selection whereby the students can pick between an auditorium or a classroom because they are limited to a small classroom size. They only can practice amongst their schoolmates, and as we all know, DAS has a very small class size. It's usually less than 10. So even if you want to practice to an audience like that, it's not possible for them because they only have their classmates to speak to. So we also have audience size. That brings me to the next point where there's too little people in a class. So besides choosing the environment, you can also choose the audience size. And next, we also have this teleprompter, which is placed at the bottom. So while developing this teleprompter, we have feedback from DAS that instead of having in the line of vision of the student, it should be placed below, just like in the real situation. Because you can't always have text appearing in front of you and you can read it directly. Because it also trains you to make eye contact and look up from your script occasionally once in a while. We also have the readout feature, meaning when the student clicks on the words, it reads out the correct pronunciation for them so they can hear what it actually sounds like before trying it out themselves. We also have volume range. Volume range meaning we detect their level of volume. So the condition to be met is that the system is able to pick up their volume and the system deems it to be too soft. Like if, for example, I think all of you will be able to hear me, but if the system is not able to pick up what I'm saying, and so it doesn't prompt them. So these two conditions have to be met for the prompt to appear. And second last one, we have eye contact, meaning we track if they are looking at the audience, if they are making appropriate eye contact with the virtual audiences. So you have like these fake miniatures planted around as a audience in a classroom or auditorium, and then they have to like look at them when they read from the script every once in a while. And if they don't, this eye icon will pop up and tell them that they should be looking at the audience. And lastly, we have pronunciation accuracy, meaning after the practice mode, they will try to read out the script. And by the way, the script can be customized, meaning they can change, like the educators or facilitators, instructors can change the script for them so that to cater to their needs, because students with dyslexia are at different levels of proficiency or fluency, so we can customize the script. And if they pronounce whatever is shown accurately, the words will turn green. If not, it will remain as red. So I have a little video here. It's a screen record of what we have. Because, is it playing? Okay. This is basically the view from the headset. Like, oh, sorry. I wish I could show everyone the headset here, but it's connected to the HDMI. The headset is connected to HDMI cable, so we can only display it from a screen record version. Okay, it doesn't play here. I'm going to play the actual video. So what the user does here is the user first log in. So this is to tag the score of the eye contact, pronunciation accuracy, and the volume level to the username. So the user can key in initials GHJ, and the user presses start. So you can see here that a user can choose from practice mode, auditorium, and classroom, and select which script they want to use. And user in this case has chosen practice mode and sentence by sentence. So when the user presses on each of the individual words, it reads out directly what it says to them. And if the user clicks all, it will read out the entire sentence for them. So that's just the practice mode. And now the user is going to go into the actual scene where the user try to read out the script himself or herself. So user has selected 50 and normal difficulty. So the script says, this is our final year project, and he or she has to press start recording, and then he'll read, oh yeah, see the eye icon over there. So it's like to prompt them when they are not making eye contact with the audience. Yeah. So when the user stops recording and reads it correctly, it turns green. So the following scene will be like just to show you how the classroom looks like. Okay, so that's about it. And then the scores of the users will be saved as a text file in the local computer storage. So like, some of you might have questions about like, oh, why does it look so unreal? It's so kind of not really hyper-realistic. They're all cartoonish. Okay, so the thing we have discussed with DAS is all these characters, all these models we have placed in, they're actually looking like that for a purpose, because when we speak to a normal human being, I mean when we speak to a wide audience and we look at like so many people over here, we do get like stage fright sometimes, we do feel the fear. So I mean, imagine what the kids would feel if they see like a bunch of very real looking people in the virtual reality headset, right? So I think maybe like having not so real looking models might open them up more, because like, you know, who knows, like they might relate to the cartoon characters more. So when we develop this, it's based on the, it's based on the self-determination continuum. Anyone with educational psychology background here? Show of hands? Nobody? Oh, all right. So we have a few. Okay, so you might be very familiar with this self-determination continuum if you have a background in educational psychology. It's basically a theory that has been developed by many people, and recently, Desi and Ryan in 2000 has developed this continuum, and this continuum says that there's two extreme ends of motivation, and we are all familiar with how it works, because A motivation is meaning like there's lack of want to participate. You don't feel engaged at all. For example, a student doesn't turn up for school at all. That's considered A motivation. And on the other extreme end, autonomous motivation, also known as wantivation, it's intrinsic motivation. So meaning they are very interest driven. They like what they do, and they take special interest in that subject. So this motivation continuum is based on three basic psychological factors. So as human beings, regardless of whether you have special learning needs or not, we need to fulfill these three psychological factors, which are competence, autonomy, and relatedness. And why did I mention this? Because what we have using this VR technology is we try to increase these three psychological factors so that it boosts their motivation levels. So it brings them from A motivation to autonomous motivation eventually. And that's what we aim to do. And how do we bring about autonomy? So this theory says that as learners, normal human beings, even dyslexic students, we need to feel an autonomy in our learning. We need to take control of our learning. We need to feel like we are in control. And what this VR does is, when you're in a virtual reality environment, technically you're free to explore, you're free to speak your mind, you're free to maybe like incorrectly pronounce some words, you're free to make mistakes. But in front of an audience, when you're judged and you have a teacher behind you and the teacher is constantly staring at you and trying to spot any mistakes that you're making, it feels very restrictive. I mean, sure, we are restricting them to a VR, but it's giving them an illusion of choice. It's kind of like, yeah, giving them limited control, and they're not really aware of it. They think they have full control. And that's what's most important. It doesn't matter if you are limiting their control or not. What is most important is they have to feel that they are in control of what they are doing. So the second factor is relatedness. I think most educational psychologists would associate relatedness with social relatedness. But in this case, it can also be applied to VR, where the students have more interest, and they think that VR could be a more fun way of learning compared to, you give them a piece of paper and pen, and then you ask them to start writing. It's teacher-centric traditional classroom method. They may not like that. So that's the point where relatedness comes in. They feel related to what they're doing, and they think that they can perform well in it, which brings me to the next point, which is, so there's autonomy, sorry, can someone help me recall again? My mind went blank. Competence and relatedness. All right, thank you for helping me. All right, I get nervous sometimes. So competence is the last point, and that's what I want to mention. When they want to feel competent, they have to know what they're doing, right? So, like when you're in a teacher-centric classroom and the teacher sits at the back, criticize the students for not pronouncing it correctly, or correct your gestures, stop making so many hand movements, don't shake your leg. The students may feel so overwhelmed, like, I'm actually not good at this, because the teacher is pointing out like so many bad things about me. I don't think I can do well. But when you put them in this environment, the VR setting, they kind of feel competent, because first it's a game. Like, it's kind of like a simulation. It's a game to them. So they kind of know what they're doing, as long as they have sufficient practice and you leave them up to it. So having competence will push them up this motivation continuum. And what's interesting about this motivation continuum is we don't really want them to be stuck in the middle where they are driven just by rewards or punishment. Like, if you don't do this, I'm not going to give you free time. Or if you do this, I'll give you something in return, like some treat or you get a free time after you study. Like, that's not what we want. We want them to be completely interested in what they are doing, and this is what AELVICE aims to do. Okay, so this is for future development. It's just a simulation as of now, but we have not incorporated elements of gamification, and we wish to. Why is that? Even though gamification has like a reward system, but then it could be a good thing to push them up from A motivation, where they feel like they are not interested in this subject at all, to at least get them up to where they feel an external pressure or an internal pressure to do something. So having gamification elements like a leadership board, like having gamification elements like a leadership board or reward system can kind of like drive them to do what they want. And from there, they figure that, oh, actually it's not that bad, like I'm kind of good at this. So like, so there's this room for them to move on to the autonomous motivation of the continuum by Wesley and Ryan. And this was in our early stages of development. So Frina's right over there. And what they had to say about our product is the software was able to place the student in a simulated environment, which is customizable, and where he or she could practice his or her presentation skills. Solaris is the name of our team when we entered Microsoft Imaging Cup last year. So Solaris was able to accommodate our requests and place the script on the lowest line of sight rather than as a floating text, like I just mentioned. So this was to allow students to practice looking down at their script in a real situation. And we also included features to track where the students are looking at. And since they understand that the software is currently at the early stage of development, they are excited to continue working with us. Right. And our project has also been featured on a Straits Times article. So yeah, this is part of the recent EduTech launch by DAS as well. And that's Ms. Gita speaking about our project. And this pictures from Microsoft Imaging Cup last year. So what we had to do is we had to compete with a bunch of students who are also submitting technological innovations and solutions, first world issues, and we have to make use of Microsoft Azure technology. And yeah, basically that was the demo. And okay, like, I would like to ask this question. How many of you actually love gardening and have green fingers? Anyone? No?
Love gardening, but no green fingers.
Oh, you love gardening but no green fingers. But that's all right, because it brings me to the point of what I want to say here is, you see, when your flower doesn't bloom, what do? Cry, not do anything. No, that's not what you should be doing. But okay, so the thing is, when our flower doesn't bloom or when our plant doesn't grow, we try to fix the environment. We don't try to fix the plant, right? Like we try to shift them from, maybe it's too sunny, it's too bright, so we change them to like shift them to a damper or darker area. Maybe it's more suited for them. So likewise, for students, I don't think we should try to fix our students if they're not learning well. We should try to fix the environment they are learning in. And what AELVICE is trying to do here is we are providing them with an alternative platform for them to perform, for them to actually develop their skills. So instead of trying to be like, I mean, it's very typical of us. Maybe as educators, we make a lot of mistakes of saying, like, why are we not doing well? What's wrong with you? Like, or maybe we don't say that, but like we sometimes think that, right? We do think that, like, why is every other student doing, like, performing well, but you're not able to solve this? It's the same thing here. Like, the plant doesn't grow, you try to change the means of learning, you try to change their method of learning, you don't try to fix them, because it's really not their fault. It's the medium in which we deliver. It's our job as educators to help them develop. So we strongly believe that when technology and education comes together, possibility becomes a reality. Thank you.